we're going to talk Oregon. The Ducks are working. They're working hard to hold on to the number one class. This weekend, though, they got a shot to kind of build on this lead. Number one quarterback Jared Curtis comes to visit. We've talked a lot about Jared Curtis on this channel. How important is this trip, not just for him, but his family as well?
Well, I think that's the key right there, right? Coming out there with this family. They've spent a lot more time in Athens. It's a lot more convenient to get to Georgia than Oregon. These are the final two. Jared's been out there a couple times with this family, but they're now coming as a whole unit. They're going to spend 3 days. They get there on the night of the 8th, but they're going to be out there the 9th, 10th, and 11th, spending time with Dan Lanning, Will Stein, and this coaching staff. And I think they're going to ask all the hard questions. What happens if Will Stein's not the offensive coordinator? So things like that. And that's because Will Stein's is one of the hot names in the country as an assistant coach right now. So Dan Lanning will be ready for all of that. They're excited to get Jared Curtis and company back out on campus. Oregon looks like the front runner going into the final two visits, but Georgia very much in this recruitment was committed to the Bulldogs. Obviously, family and Jared love that coaching staff, love the type of players that Georgia recruits. Loves Coach Mike Bobo, Coach Montgomery Van Gorder, and the potential in that offense, proximity to home. But Oregon is an exciting school right now in this recruitment. They'll be out there for 3 days. Dan Lanning, Coach Stein and company looking to close this thing out. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his college decision coming out of these upcoming spring visits. He's going to be at Georgia on the 13th, and he's been to these schools several times. He does have official visits set with both programs for June, so maybe these visits make the decision even harder. Maybe he has to go into the summer. But right now, I think we're going into these visits with the idea that these are the last two. Then it's time to make a decision.
All right, that's going to be pretty interesting. So you do think he makes it to that Georgia? I mean, the Georgia visit is 13, so we could be looking at a decision maybe, possibly in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Again, he's been to Georgia numerous times. This will be his third time out with the family at Oregon. So he'll have all the information, just one more visit to each campus just to make sure everything feels right one way or the other. Get these tough questions answered, these final thoughts on the table, then go home, talk it over with family representation, come to a decision and announce it.
All right. Well, if Oregon wants that number one class, they're going to need to land a guy like Jared Curtis because USC is nipping at the heels of the Ducks. They flipped Jonas Williams from Oregon during the dead period. Now, today, they get number 2 cornerback Devon Benjamin on campus. Is this another USC-Oregon battle for the number 2 ranked corner in America?
These are the programs I'm watching the closest. I logged that recent on-3 prediction in favor of Oregon, but I think USC is right there with the Ducks, and there are some around the Trojans program that think that they lead. He is going to be at USC on Thursday. The Trojans are a well-oiled machine right now from a relationship standpoint. The NIL potential that they're showing these top targets in the 2026 class, I expect them to put it all on the table on Thursday for Devon Benjamin. We'll see where the chips stack up coming out of this visit to USC on Thursday.
All right. What other major Oregon USC battles are you tracking right now in the 2026 cycle?
Well, there's quite a few. I think you start with the number 4 linebacker in the on-3 industry, Talanoa Illy. He visited both Oregon and USC earlier this calendar year. My intel gives the edge to the Trojans right now, but both programs are battling for the number 78 prospect overall. 4-star defensive lineman Tamuhini Topuai. We've obviously talked to him several times on the show out of Mater Day. He committed to Oregon during the fall, but he was at USC the first weekend of February. The Trojans are very much on flip watch in this recruitment. My colleague Chad Simmons reporting that Tom is expected to take his official visits before making a final decision. Several California names looking at both programs. It starts with the number 1 cornerback in the on-3 industry, 5-star Brandon Arrington. He also likes Alabama, A&M, to name a few others. But Oregon, there's been more buzz about them than USC, but USC's had him on campus, and they're one of his favorites. 5-star receiver Chris Henry Jr. is committed to Ohio State. 5-star. He might be tough to flip. Been more buzz about Oregon, but USC again hosted him in February. Both programs expecting officials in the summer. The number 2 tight end in the class is Mark Bowman. He's visiting Alabama this weekend. He also likes Georgia and Texas, but Oregon and USC on the list for official visits. USC also going to get a visit this spring. The Trojans are really starting to hit the gas on Mark Bowman. Recently reclassified 2026 cornerback Havon Finney has Oregon and USC in his lead group. Oregon probably has the edge on USC right now for 4-star receiver Caden Dixon-Wyatt out of Mater Dei, but USC recently offered trying to make a move. On the flip side, I think USC has the edge for 4-star running back Deshaun Rideau, but Oregon is one of the other programs he's strongly considering. 4-star defensive lineman Tommy Tofi from California is an Oregon lean per the On3 RPM, and there's a few out-of-state names to also keep an eye on, Josh. 4-star edge Derek Coleman Brusa is the number 1 player in the state of Washington. Oregon is favored on the On3 RPM. Albert Hill is the number 1 player in Ohio, a cornerback. He just visited Alabama. His next 2 visits are Oregon and USC, so he's a pivotal recruit in these sweepstakes. The number 8 cornerback in the class, Kerry Adams, will be at Oregon on April 11th. He's trying to line something up with USC, certainly Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, or some of the other Syracuse in there for Kerry Adams. They're both swinging at the number 1 linebacker in the land, Tyler Atkinson, the number 3 safety, Jet Washington. So Oregon, USC, recruiting the nation's best from coast to coast, oftentimes going toe-to-toe with each other. They both are in the mix for the number 1 class in the country. It's a battle that's going to wage on in the spring. And Jared Curtis and Davon Benjamin, all eyes on those 2 right now in this class race for number 1 sweepstakes.
Yeah, this is great to see. I mean, 2 rival programs fighting for the number 1 recruiting class, battling over a number of top recruits. And look, some are going to end up at USC, some are going to end up at Oregon. Where the chips all fall, we'll see at the end. But Oregon fans, USC fans, talk to us. How do you feel about some of these battles? Let us know.